Okay, if we get everybody back in and get seated, and we'll get started with the second half of our forum, covering Senate District 15. Nope. House District 20. Okay. Well, even if we got the number wrong, we do have different people up here. So, all right. So if we can get everybody in, we'll get settled and get going here. Okay. So for House District 20, we have Jonathan Wilk, the Republican, and Mitchell Jacob as representing the Democrats. And gentlemen, I'll just give you a real quick overview of our ground rules tonight. And I thank you both for coming tonight. It's a great opportunity to hear from you and give our voters and both the folks that are here as well as the people watching on our stream an idea about both of you. So appreciate y'all doing that. So in an effort to preserve as much time as possible for the questions, which are all submitted by our constituents, going to go over a few ground rules. Each candidate will be given 60 seconds to introduce themselves. We'll then proceed directly to the question and answer portion. All questions are submitted by constituents. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. We're going to adhere strictly to the time limits so that we can get all of our questions that have been submitted asked and answered. And the forum is designed to encourage respectful and informative discussion. Please refrain from personal attacks and focus on the issues. We expect a tone of civility and professionalism throughout the event. This is Oklahoma, not national politics, by the way. So, okay. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll start with Jonathan, and I hope it's okay I call you Jonathan and Mitchell, okay? Because I can do the Mr. thing too. So Jonathan Wilk, you have 60 seconds to just kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and why you chose to run for election here.
My name's Jonathan Wilk. Born and raised in Washington. Attended school there and graduated in about 1999. Married a girl from Purcell. She graduated the same year I did, and she's currently a teacher at Washington Public Schools. She's been involved there for right around 20 years, I think. I went on and worked at the fire marshal's office there at the city of Norman and retired out of the fire service after 23 years. Currently, I'm running a cow-calf operation with my wife and my 3 boys, and also working fire investigations for insurance companies. I was kind of asked to help find somebody to run, and when we talked to some folks, they all pointed the finger back at me. So that's kind of how I got into this. I'd spent some time at Norman through the 2020, the police defunding, and flipping the mayor and flipping the council. So was that my timer?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. Mitchell?
Thank you. So my name is Mitchell Jacob. I'm one of you. I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma as one of 9 children. I am a father, husband, 4th generation Okie. I'm an Army veteran, and I'm a student at OU Law. I am a product of and a proponent of Oklahoma's public schools, and I had the pleasure of attending Union Public Schools in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Following that, I attended a private university, Tulane, down in New Orleans for 3 semesters, but letting an 18-year-old choose a $56,000 per year private school, that's one of society's greater jests. So I dropped out, but I restarted. And I've earned 2 associate's degrees, 1 bachelor's, and this coming May, I'll earn my 4th degree, a Juris Doctor from OU Law. I have been a busboy and a dishwasher, mortgage loan originator, banker, then a licensed stockbroker, and then I quit all that to become a private in the Army and make good on a promise to serve my country. I simply believe in hard work and serving this community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as we go through the questions, we're going to alternate who goes first, okay? So Mitchell, you'll go first on the first question here. So this is a two-part question. Partisan politics are very prominent in today's political environment. How can constituents who do not share your political affiliation be assured that you will represent their interests if elected? And B, what actions would you take to connect with your constituents and thoroughly understand their viewpoints before making decisions on divisive issues where your opinions may differ?
I think this is a fantastic question and a wonderful one to start with, because all we all want to do, I assume, is move forward, work together, find solutions, and create a better Oklahoma and a better district. I believe that we can do that. You can tell me when I'm not best representing you in a variety of ways. 405-407-6975, that's my cell phone number, and I'll read it again in a little while. I think that's very important, because if you can't get a hold of the person who wants to represent you, then who are they representing? So 405-407-6975. I encourage you to text me, to call me, to let me know how I can represent you, and let me know when I'm not representing you. As to how we can work together before voting on any issue, whether it's divisive or it brings people together, if you take a chance and elect me to represent House District 20, I'll be hosting town halls. I imagine they'll be monthly during the legislative session, or perhaps more often, depending upon what's going on. And I imagine they'll be quarterly or something of that nature when the legislative session is over, or during that 8 months of downtime. I just believe in connecting with you, learning what you need, how to represent you, and what we can do together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitchell. Jonathan, same question.
So how I can represent, or how you can know that I'll represent people on the other side of the aisle from our district? Well, my whole career has been bipartisan, if you will. It doesn't matter whether you're in the ag industry, or whether you're in the oil and gas industry, or whether you're in public safety. You've got to represent people. You don't get to ask them, are you Democrat or are you Republican, before you can serve them. That's not what public service is about. So I think I've got a proven track record of over 23 years now in different careers that I've worked in, representing both sides and showing that I can do that. What was the second part of that?
The second part of that question is, what actions would you take to connect with your constituents and thoroughly understand their viewpoints before making decisions?
So again, I'll go back to my experience a little bit. So, you know, I've had situations arise through criminal investigations or just through emergency situations where I've had an opportunity to sit down with folks either after it or during it and understand their perspective and why they were doing what they did, or kind of what got them to this point. So I think I've got a lot of knowledge and experience in dealing with people from different backgrounds and understanding their perspectives.
Okay, thank you. Okay, second question, and Jonathan, you'll go first on this one. Another two-part question. What long-term effects do you think the increased use of emergency certified teachers could have on the quality of education in our schools? And secondly, what steps should the state take to reduce the reliance on emergency certifications while still addressing teacher shortages?
So there's a lot to unwrap in that question. The emergency certifications are a good tool, but they're not end-all be-all, and they shouldn't be used as a substitute for permanent certifications. My wife was an emergency certified teacher prior to being certified. So I understand how it's meant to work and how it is a benefit for the school districts and the individuals pursuing that degree field. But I think we've got to do a better job of supporting our school staff to try to entice them to go ahead. Hey, this is a commitment that you can make, and we're going to support you in that when you get into that career field. We can do a lot of that by, toning down the rhetoric and supporting them the way they want to be supported.
Okay. Mitchell?
6,300. In May of this year, that's what I understand to be the number of teachers that we need who are fully certified to staff all the open positions. 6,300. That is a staggering number of positions that we need to fill. On the one hand, if we have those who are certified and have been through the training and certification process, we know the results that we can expect in their classroom for their students on the tests that they will take, and whether or not we have a much better understanding of how those children will do throughout their time in the public school system. I think the long-term effects of consistently recertifying emergency certified teachers will only be known long after the fact, and I imagine that the quality of education will not be as high as it should be with fully certified teachers. As to how we can address that, I've put a lot of thought into this actually, and I'd love to talk to anyone after who wants to, but I would love to propose a bill. First, I'd like to do a study, but then propose a bill, because we have universities like OU, Cameron, OSU that offer teaching degrees. These are state institutions that are run by the state, so all we need is a legislator who's willing to write a bill that says that X number of students can enroll each year for free and then have to serve for 4 years in a public school. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. In kind of a related question to the one before, particularly when it pertains to teacher turnover, which is a cause a cause of the increased emergency certifications. This August, the Wall Street Journal published an article on teacher burnout and turnover that cited a Rand Corporation study that concluded only 42% of teachers feel the stress of their job is worth it, compared to 70% who felt it was as recently as 2018. There were many factors, including pay, but overwhelmingly the number one factor was managing student behavior. What can and should the legislature do to address that problem? And Mitchell, you're first on this one.
So what I believe needs to happen is that education needs to be given back to educators. The Oklahoma Constitution is very, very clear. The Department of Education and the state legislature does not have the authority to dictate curriculum, in-class teaching styles, things of that nature to teachers and to educators. To be sure, we need to raise salaries. $42,000 a year with a required 4-year degree. There are jobs that pay significantly better than that that do not require degrees. And so I applaud every educator that chooses to educate our most valuable asset, our children, despite the expectations and lack of pay that goes with that. But the legislature cannot force parents to be better parents. I think that's the first thing that we need to do in this state. All people are accountable for their actions, and that includes the children in our schools. From there, we should be providing our public school children with lunch and breakfast every single day, because a child who's fed is a child who wants to be there and is a child who can actually learn. And beyond that, we need to stop trying to rule with a heavy hand from the Capitol, things that the Department of Education and the legislature are banned from doing by the Constitution anyway, whether that be dictating that we're going to teach from Bibles or dictating, blanked on my second example, but forgive me on that. Thanks.
Okay. And Jonathan, same question. I can repeat any of these if you need me to.
Please, go ahead.
Okay. August Wall Street Journal published an article on teacher burnout and turnover that cited a corporation study that concluded 42% of teachers feel the stress of their job is worth it. Only 42%, compared to 70% in 2018. The number one factor was managing student behavior. What can and should the legislature do about that?
Yeah, that sounds pretty familiar with the kind of what law enforcement's went through the last several years, right?
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of difference there. So I think the biggest issue is exactly what you said, is the disciplinary issues at the schools. They need to get their hands untied, and I firmly believe in discipline. I think every teacher, when I was growing up, had a wooden paddle hanging at the front of the room, and I'm a big proponent of that. I'm just going to tell you. You know, the other thing that's really within the legislator's control is lead by example. You know, there's cancers on both sides of this issue, and both groups need to work to get those cancers rooted out to where we can all come together and come up with some solutions and work towards the same end goal, which is educating our kids. So.
Okay, thank you. So, Jonathan, you'll be first on this question. What is your stance on raising wages for school support staff, and how do you believe their compensation impacts the overall learning environment?
Yeah, so on support staff, what I think of when that's mentioned is the teacher's aides, some helpers that's assigned to some of the IEP students, things of that nature. You know, by reducing the class sizes, that'll have a big positive impact on the need to have those positions. And then the ones that you do have, we can afford to pay them more. But again, we've got to get to the point to where we can say enough's enough. And if parents aren't controlling their kids, they need to be sent home. And so I think the solution is not more government, it's less government and more parenting. Parents need to take responsibility for their kids. And if you can't control them at home, the school system is not there to raise your kids. And so by reducing the number of support staff, by having a zero tolerance policy for those issues, I think we're going to be able to increase that, again, on a merit-based system.
Okay. Mitchell?
And what was the second part of that question? The
Actually,
first-
that was just a one-parter. What's your stance on raising wages for school support staff? How do you believe their compensation impacts the overall learning environment?
So first thing is, I was extremely proud to stand in front of the Secretary of State's office. It was a few months ago. My days all blend together. But for State Question 832, I believe that we should be raising wages in Oklahoma, period. And that includes for support staff at schools. But its impact upon the schools seems pretty obvious to me. If I am taking bids on who's going to work on a remodel of my home, I'm not going to take the bid that comes in the lowest. And I'm probably not going to take the second lowest either. And I'm going to look for one that is a sweet spot between value and competence. And we will always get better applicants and better staff whenever we pay them more, offer them more benefits, and take better care of them. I don't see how you could have any negative impact, at least on the quality of education, as is the question, from raising the wage of the people who are tasked with taking care of and educating our children. So I 100% support increasing that pay and increasing the quality of education.
Okay. Mitchell, you'll be first on this question. According to the Oklahoma State Regents for Higher Education's 2022 High School Indicator Report, only 34.8% of Oklahoma high school graduates pursued college. Given the significant number of graduates not continuing their education at the collegiate level, what measures would you take to support trade-centered and vocational education opportunities for Oklahomans after high school?
Can I just say that I am incredibly proud of Oklahoma's VOTEC programs. I have 2 boys enrolled in VOTEC right now, one for automotive and one for welding. I think that we have incredible programs, and I am so honored to live in Mid-America Technology Center's district and to be able to work with Mike Eubank on a regular basis. In short, if you're not going to go a traditional 4-year route, which I encourage anyone who has the ability to do it to go that route, and Oklahoma's Promise can be an excellent way of achieving that for those who are just worried about ability to pay. But I believe that we should take the Tulsa Community College and Tulsa County model. And if you're from this district or Mid-America or whatever that VOTEC district and you graduate with a certain GPA, let them attend a VOTEC program free or at a reduced price. They're already a great value. One of my sons is going to welding school, and the total all-in, books included and supplies, is only $4,000. I think that we're doing wonderful things here in Oklahoma, and I just want to take that one step further and empower everyone who wants to be able to, without price being the thing that prevents them from pursuing their dreams and becoming a contributing member to this wonderful and incredible state.
Okay. Jonathan, same question.
Okay, I think I got it.
Okay. I'm glad to read it again if you'd like me to.
I think I'm okay.
Okay.
So on the VOTEX or career techs, whatever you wish to call them, I think they are good. They're very good. But I think we've got to do better. There's a lot of opportunities for a lot of rural communities, even outside House District 20. The aviation programs that are coming along are really good. Mid-America's, or no, I'm sorry, Moore Norman has got some stuff in the works. I know Mid-America is looking at expanding their operation to the Newcastle Blanchard area, which is very good. I'm happy to see that. I think we can do some things to help those get off the ground with local companies within this state looking for staffing. I'm sure they would be glad to follow the Catalyst education model and divert their tax dollars to those VOTECs, just like they're able to do with the public schools. And so it would be a huge, huge help for both the state, the business community, and those students.
Okay. So the next question is a two-part question. We'll start with you, Jonathan. How would you advocate for transparency in government to ensure that constituents can effectively monitor the performance of their elected officials? And the second part, what steps would you take if you believe an elected official is not fulfilling their responsibilities to their constituents? So first question about transparency, and the second, what would you do if you felt like an elected official wasn't fulfilling their responsibilities?
So transparency is an obligation when you step up into public official. So I think you're basically required, in my mind, to provide that to your constituents. My personal method of doing that is through phone one-on-one conversations or person-to-person, just because a lot can get lost in translation, whether it's through social media or even emails, text messages. A lot of things can get misinterpreted, misconstrued. In regards to what I would do about another constituent not being transparent, it's part of the democracy that we live in. That's between the voters and that constituent. It's not my place to interfere with that. I can give guidance to them, and I can express concerns from my constituents to them, but at the end of the day, it's up to them in that poll box. That's not my place to interfere.
Okay, and I want to follow up just real quickly, and we'll give each of you a little extra time. What about campaign finance reform and how transparency, which we kind of have a murky world out there right now. How do you feel about that?
So when we were asked at a forum, I want to say maybe it was Newcastle, they had asked about election integrity, and this is the exact topic that I brought up, was I think that's the biggest threat to our election integrity is the dark money that can be put out there against somebody without anybody's name being attached to it or anybody even knowing where it's coming from. So I'm totally opposed to dark money, and the more transparent those expenditures are, the better outcomes we'll have.
Okay. Mitchell, same. I can reread the questions if you'd like. We added a little extra there.
I think we'll be all right. Thanks,
Okay,
Randy.
go right ahead.
So as for transparency, again, just 405-407-6975. Call me, text me. Happy to answer any questions, let you know how I voted if you're unable to find the information. And I believe transparency is something you live by and something you do. So that's how I feel on that one. As far as if another elected official is not fulfilling their role, that depends. If they are a legislator, for example, I'm sure all of us remember back to high school being assigned to a group project, and that person just chose not to do anything, but we still had to turn something in. So I simply believe in doing the hard work, and I'm not going to let someone else get in the way of that simply because they're not doing their job. This state and you are worth more than that, and I'll do whatever work is necessary to get things done. But if we're talking about someone who is not a legislator and who has a mandate, for example, the state superintendent of education, there are lots of options, writs of mandamus, writs of prohibition. We have a variety of tactics available to us to ensure that they're complying with their mandate and doing the job that they were elected to do. So it simply depends upon who we're talking about. As for campaign finance, I was actually blown away when I was running. I went to go file a quarterly report in June, I believe, and I was told, don't file anything. You don't file until the primary. And then for this one, we didn't file until August, and then we don't file until the general. I think that you should be able to know where the money is coming from and who is funding a campaign long before the week before the election. You should have access to all that information regularly, constantly, and even if that adds a lot of expense, time, and complication to my campaign, it is absolutely worth it, and you deserve to know it.
Okay, thank you. Mitchell, you'll be first on this question. How do you ensure that homeowners of older properties, some of which may have been paid off for decades, receive fair market value when their homes are taken through eminent domain, especially considering potential historical or sentimental values?
So whether it's OTA, a utility company, the Department of Transportation, whatever entity is looking to exercise their power of eminent domain against property, my recommendation is to just keep holding out. Don't accept the first offer, don't accept the second offer, don't accept the third offer, don't accept any of the offers. Make them work for it, and then whenever they provide you that number, challenge it. Challenge the appraisers, hire your own. I recognize some of this comes with expenses, but your property value will only be of paramount importance to you. And if you want to call me 405-407-6975, I'll walk you through the exact steps I would take to protect the value of my home. But I strongly recommend that you do not accept those offers, because multiple studies and multiple news reports have shown that when you force OTA into court, the jury will always give a significantly better appraisal than whomever is doing the eminent domain project.
Thank you. Jonathan, same question.
So as a conservative, I'm always going to side with the property owner's rights, just like parental rights or any other personal rights. I believe in limited government, and that type of abuse leads to big government. So one of the things when this started for the Turnpike acquisition, I dug in and got to looking at where we at as a state in regards to eminent domain. And what I found was we've got some from a property owner's perspective, very weak eminent domain laws in Oklahoma compared to the rest of the country. Whereas when you look at Florida's, per se, they've got a very strict guideline to follow, very strict model. It's outlined in the judicial system, and it's a timeline and step by step, and it's got to be approved by the court in that district. So I think one of the things that we can do as a legislators is look and say, hey, is the thing that we adopted in 1907 still a good model? I don't think it is. And I think Florida's got a very good model for the citizens and for property owners' rights. but still allows those necessities to take place when they have to.
Okay. I'm gonna follow up real quickly with each of you on this particular topic. I know that when the turnpike went in through the Choctaw area, the biggest problem was not that they didn't give fair market value. They did give fair market value, but if you have an 80-year-old frame house that's been paid off for 30 years, how do you possibly go find someplace comparable to live with what they're going to pay you? Is that something the legislature can or should address? Jonathan, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that you're ever going to find a satisfactory answer to that for either party. You know, one of the things that we need to be looking at from our perspective, I think, is this really in the right location to impact the least amount of people and provide the safest alternative routes that we can possibly provide. And if that means we spend a few extra dollars to move it further south, east, west, north, whatever, to impact fewer people, and somebody that, 2 miles down the road may want it, but the property may not mean anything to them. So I think we got to look at different ways to say, hey, can we mitigate this damage? Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, I don't know how to really answer that.
Okay, Mitchell?
Similarly, I struggle to think in this short period of time of a direct solution to that issue. But I do know that one of the reasons we find ourselves, at least with this east-west connector running through Norman, that we find ourselves in this issue of they're not going to move it, property owner suing isn't doing anything, nothing's being enjoined, it's still progressing, is the Oklahoma Supreme Court saying that the debtor rights, when they issued those bonds, are greater than the rights of the property owners in the path of that project. I have fundamental issues with a court that decides that. Those property owners and those property rights, those should be protected first and foremost. And then a bunch of other things are going to happen, like municipalities, the sovereigns, and then maybe we'll care about the debtors' rights at the bottom. But those debtors should not have rights that force you to lose your home, or these once in a lifetime buildings are being destroyed because we believe that the rights of bondholders are greater than the rights of property holders, and that can be addressed by statute. So that will not directly address eminent domain, but it can work magic in the background to effectively give us a lot more leverage when these projects try to come through our cities and counties.
Okay, thank you. So just kind of sticking with the turnpike here, another two-part question, and Mitchell, we'll go with you first. What is your position on the original promise that Oklahoma turnpikes would be returned to the state after their bonds were paid off? And how do you plan to address that issue? And if elected, would you support legislative efforts to reevaluate the status of Oklahoma's turnpikes and ensure that original agreement is honored?
I'm going to go 100 steps further than that. Oklahoma Statute Title 69, Section 1701 is the enabling act for the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. Let's abolish the Turnpike Authority, get rid of it, and replace them, turn them over to the Oklahoma Department of Transportation, tell it to finish out any current revenue obligations, and no additional turnpikes may be installed in the state of Oklahoma. That's my solution, and that's very simple to me.
Okay. Jonathan?
So yeah, the original agreement has to be met. I'm not going to back down on that. Whatever we agreed to and was agreed upon by those parties needs to make sure it's fulfilled first. Mm-hmm. What was the first? That was the second part of that question. What was the first part?
Yeah. So what's your position on the original promise that the turnpikes would be returned to the state once the bonds are paid off? And the second one, if elected, would you support legislative efforts to reevaluate the status of the turnpikes and ensure that the original agreement is honored?
Yes, that's a pretty simple answer. Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, and Jonathan, you'll be first on this question. This is another two-part question. How do you view the impact of divisive political rhetoric on public trust in government institutions and the democratic process? And in your opinion, what responsibility do elected officials have in ensuring that their language and messaging do not incite violence or hatred?
Yes, so the first thing I want to talk about is decorum. I think, as what's went on here tonight has been very civil, and I think that's the way it should always be. We can sit here and disagree on different policies all day long, but it's not personal. And it kind of this extremism or radicalism from one side or the other, or both sides, needs to stop, because it's not doing any of us any good. We try to raise our kids right, and then we get up here and act like fools. So it's got a huge impact, far outside him and I, if we were up here bantering like that. But it's our personal responsibility, but at the same time, it's the responsibility of the voters too, to not elect those individuals.
Okay, thank you. Mitchell?
Whomever you are, wherever you're from, whatever your politics, religion, ideology, whatever you believe, wherever you're born, wherever you call home, I love you. Welcome to Oklahoma, welcome to House District 20, and welcome to our shared home. That's how it starts right there. You can solve divisive politics by stop being divisive, by talking in a way that respects someone else's disagreement, acknowledges them, lets them know they've been heard, and then you can move on to a point of common ground that you can start with and then work toward changing it. I am not right and you are not wrong, just as you are not right and I'm not wrong. These are policy decisions. These are ways forward and paths to govern. There are 4.8 million people in the state of Oklahoma, which means that there are 4.8 million ways that the government should be operating. And the only way we're going to get to a position where we agree with each other is if we have a conversation. 405-407-6975. Give me a call. Let's have that conversation.
Okay. So, okay, next question then. This is a two-part question. When faced with a conflict between your conscience and convictions and your party's leadership direction, what will determine your course? What topic or subject can you see that such a conflict might arise? And Mitchell, you're first.
I'm running to represent the people of House District 20. Neither the Republican Party nor the Democratic Party can vote on either one of us and put us into office. Only you can do that. Only the individual people. And so my only obligation is to House District 20, is to Oklahoma. It is not to a party. I thought I was going to answer this differently, so I'll just say it this way. It is the good people that I meet door knocking, making phone calls, and just being out in the community that let me know that I'm doing the right thing and that this is worthwhile. And it is not anyone in Oklahoma City or Washington, D.C., or wherever it may be who is making this happen. Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Is there a topic or a subject you think there might be a conflict, knowing your party's leadership direction and your convictions right now? Is there anything you can see that, hey, I may have to deal with something there?
I wasn't ready for that question. There's
Good.
definitely going to
Good,
be
we have a good one here. No.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, yes, absolutely. One thing I think of offhand is I'm an Oklahoma native, fourth generation, have little fifth generations running around the house. I have conservative values built in me. I believe myself to be a conservative person, just not conservative enough for all of my friends in the district. But what that means to me is that if I am faced with a policy that's trying to greatly expand government or expand the role that government plays or interferes in your life, do not support that. I believe in a government that's accountable to the people, built by the people, and is run by the people, not a government that runs the people.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan, same question.
So to kind of echo Mitch's position on representing the people versus representing your leadership or your party, to be honest with you, I couldn't agree with him more. We have to represent the people that put us there. Those are the ones we're getting elected to represent. Those are the ones we get the opportunity to be their voice up there. I'm not going up there to represent a special interest group, and that includes Republican Party or its factions. And then as far as going against the grain on leadership and what challenges I foresee, you know, a lot of individuals run on a conservative ticket that they want smaller government, that they want lower taxes, but then they get up there and they don't always do that. And in those situations, I'm going to go against the grain on it. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do, which was fight all I can to lower taxes, put more money in your pocket, and keep the government out of your business and out of your life. You know, I don't know. I've met with the speaker a couple times now. I don't know enough about him and his leadership until our caucus retreat to say what I'll disagree with him on and what I'll agree with him on leadership.
Okay. All right, and Jonathan, you'll be the first on this question. Public libraries provide vital resources to our communities like bridging the digital divide, especially for low-income and rural populations. If elected, what steps will you take to ensure that public libraries have the funding and resources they need to meet the growing demands of their community?
So in terms of kind of the rural library model in Oklahoma and providing internet access for youth and even for the elderly, and an opportunity for them to learn computer skills as they get up a little older in life, I support all that. What I don't support is our libraries being used for welfare projects, from housing for homeless, from loitering. I don't support any of that, but I do support their intent in terms of educating folks, giving folks an opportunity to learn that otherwise may not have that opportunity. But like I said, I want to be careful when we do that in what we're actually funding.
Okay, thank you. Mitchell?
I love public libraries. When I was young, between the ages of 10 and 13 or so, there was a public library that was 2 blocks from my house. Took maybe 4 minutes to get there when I was walking slowly. I consumed hundreds, if not thousands, of books from that library, and it ignited a fiery passion that exists today that is consuming more books. Now, law school has challenged that passion a little bit, I'll tell you that. Those get a little dry and dusty from time to time. But I love reading. In fact, I love what our libraries, at least in Newcastle that I can speak to directly, are doing. They do after-school tutoring programs for the children at the elementary and middle school. They do literacy programs in toddler time, and just everything that gets more people hooked on reading, the best thing to be hooked on. So what I want to do is be a friend of the library. I believe that's what we call the library boards, and do what I can to ensure that they have the support, the resources, and the staff that they need to make our communities that much better and to hopefully change another life and get another child who also wants to read for the rest of their life. And as an aside, I challenge each of you to read 1 book a month. It's really good. It can develop a bunch of new hobbies, skills, and interests that we never knew about.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mitchell, you'll be first on this. As you look ahead to what would be your first legislative session, what specific legislation do you hope to champion, and why is that important to you?
Like I said, I'm a proponent and a product of public school, and I love our public schools. And I think that we would see a benefit to education if we would just do a couple of really simple things in my book that'll help every child. So what I want to do is amend the Parental Choice Tax Credit Act. Stop taking $250 million per year and spending it on private institutions, and instead use it to pay for lunch and breakfast for every public school child who's attending school every school day. And with whatever's left, I would love to create a new tax credit for teachers who are buying supplies out of their own pocket for the classroom. I'm only thinking $250 per teacher per year, but you should not be saddled with the expense of investing in our most valuable resource. That should be an investment by the state. So I want to pass legislation that amends that Parental Choice Tax Credit Act that keeps your public dollars in public institutions and helps all 700,000 students in Oklahoma instead of only 30,000 per year.
Thank you. Jonathan, same question.
So I'm going to go outside the lines here a little bit and venture out into some subjects that are important to me that are outside public education, but some of them have to do with it. But the first, and I think the most primary one that we need to do is we need to perform an audit of all the state agencies, see where we're at, see what we need to cut, see what we can cut, see if we need to add money somewhere. I think that's going to have to be done first and foremost, especially since the House of Representatives pretty well controls the budget. I think that's the best starting point we can ask for. The second thing I want to do is I want to work on tax relief. And we can do that after we do the audit. The other thing I've been passionate about, like I told you guys earlier, was the eminent domain laws in Oklahoma. They need to be modeled more along the lines of Florida's. And I think that'll save a lot of this rhetoric and this fighting and some of this other stuff that we talked about earlier. There is one bill that I do want to fund public education for. I want to fund cell phone jammers for the classrooms. That's legitimate truth because I think they're a huge distraction, they're a huge problem, and the teachers need to be able to teach without them being on their phones. They've done it for 100 years. We can still do that.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Okay, this is coming to the end of our forum, and thank you guys again both for coming. So this is kind of your final 90-second closing statements, okay? So Jonathan, we'll start with you. What message do you want to leave with voters today about your candidacy and your commitment to serving Oklahoma?
So I want to narrow the scope of that a little bit from serving Oklahoma to serving House District 20. I've heard legislators in the past discuss that, where they've got to represent the entire state, and I disagree with that. I think I represent the people here in District 20, and so that's who I want to represent. Obviously, there's going to be some contrast in policies between my opponent and myself, and I think that's where you need to make your decision. Base it on policies. And I think right now in Oklahoma, if you want to have a voice at the Capitol, just to be honest with you, you're going to have a conservative up there, or you're just not going to have a voice. You might have a voice, but you won't get anything passed. So as you go to the polls, remember that and think about that and look at the party, what their positions are. You don't have to agree with the person 100% of the time. Nobody's going to. But you need to be in line with them about 80% of the time at least. I'm not convinced I agree with my wife that much. I'm still married to her, or she's still married to me, rather, right? So anyway, I just want to let you guys know I'll be available. I'm just a common sense, just a normal guy. I've been down in the trenches with you, and I'll be here. If you guys ever need anything, feel free to reach out. I want you to know who you're voting for. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Mitchell?
I am one of 9 kids from Oklahoma. I know what it means, like many, many of you, to be in a tight spot, to wonder if that car is going to be repossessed, to wonder how the rent is going to be paid, and to wonder where the next meal might come from. And like probably all of us, I busted my butt to get here today. I worked for years as a busboy and a dishwasher, and then in my early 20s, I became a mortgage loan originator, then a banker, then a stockbroker, gave all of that up to enlist in the Army, all while attending school. I have 5 kids, and I'm in my 3rd year of law school, and I'm running this campaign without a campaign manager, without a single staff member, and without any consultants whatsoever. All that to say is I'll give you 2 reasons I'm going to ask you to take a chance on me on November 5th and vote to elect Mitchell Jacob to represent House District 20. 1, I promise you that I will always put in the work. And 2nd, you can never accuse me of not caring for you, for this district, and for this state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitchell. Okay, well, that concludes our forum this evening. Thank you to, again, Noble Public Schools Foundation, Noble School District, Frank Solomon, Superintendent. Thank you to you gentlemen for taking the time to come out and visit. Our program was streamed tonight as well, so I'm assuming that can be rewatched, and encourage people that you know would have an interest, which is, hey, all of us, right, to come back and watch both of the forums that we have this evening, and learn more about the candidates who seek to represent us. So again, thank you all for coming. With that, also, I'm assuming you guys are going to maybe hang around a little bit. If anybody has any questions, you'd be willing to do that. And so thank you both, Mitch and Jonathan, for your time this evening. With that, we'll close up. Thank you very much.